Yes, the week definitely belonged to the bears. Anisha, thanks very much for walking us through the market action. But meanwhile, we're looking at industrial investment intentions, which are seeing a dip in the first 9 months of 2022. Why exactly is that? And now what the kind of carnage that we're talking about in the markets, is it reflecting more contagion as far as the Indian economy is concerned, is the question to ask. And to discuss this, Aditya Shah, Chief Investment Officer at JST Investments, joining us, along with M. Govinda Rao, who's the former member of the 14th Finance Commission. First to you, Mr. Rao. The government data that we've been poring over is showing that the number of industrial investment intentions have taken this dip of almost 25%, and this in the first 9 months of this year, of 2022. And the proposed investment sum is down nearly 10% from what we've seen a year earlier, which we know was in that period of the pandemic. So the base couldn't get lower than that. And yet we are seeing this dip. Some are pointing towards high interest rates as the reason. But, credit growth has been high. So what are the reasons that you see why India is reporting such a fall in industrial investments?
There are a variety of reasons for this. First of all, right from something like for the last 10, 12 years, the gross domestic capital formation has been on the decline. It has declined from 40% to almost 27%, particularly when the COVID struck. And, commensurately, there has been a sort of decline in the growth rate of the economy as well. Now, the manufacturing sector investments are in a very bad shape, particularly because, the world, world over, you have the investment, the economies are slowing down. And with the slowing down of the economies, and, particularly in the Western economies, the interest rates are up, and the economies have been having problems. And the war has created a serious situation because of the inflation. And this is, and in China, you have a serious problem of COVID. So the essentials, sort of supply chain disruptions,
yes,
have been a major cause in many of these cases. Obviously, the investments are not going to be
that's right.
sort of forthcoming.
So multiple reasons, Mr. Rao.
In India too.
Yes.
You
yes.
have a problem of higher interest rates going up. Exports are coming down.
Yes.
And and many of these factors have combined.
Yes.
So the manufacturing sector has been showing signs of
so many of the factors that you're talking about, Mr. Rao, are external in nature. Aditya, you've always been very positive about the markets. Whenever I've spoken to you on India Tonight, you've sounded very gung-ho. And by and large, on the strength of the Indian economy as well, we've been talking about how there is resilience. But are these worrying signs, according to you, that industrial investments, which the finance minister has often alluded to, saying she doesn't understand why these investments aren't coming through, why industry is holding back on investments, are these concerns reflecting in market sentiment now, you think?
First of all, good evening, Vikram. I don't see it as a major threat, and certainly not the cause for Nifty falling today. It's very, very simple. The market had not corrected since 6 months, and it is now using the opportunity of COVID in China to really correct. So the primary cause of market is not the slowdown in investments, but the market wanted to correct. The first point. The second point is we are coming out of a scenario where there was a slowdown, there was COVID, and there were X number of issues that were out there. Now, slowly and steadily, the economy is beginning to recover. This credit growth is a leading indicator of the economy to recover. All other factors will start to follow once credit growth is into the economy. You should remember from 2018 to about 2021, the system credit growth was negative. And the lagging effect of all of these is that the investments have not been coming into the economy. Today, the first leading indicator into the economy is the credit growth. On top of it, over the next 3 to 5 years, all other sectors will build up and the economy will continue to do well. And I must remind everybody that India is the only economy which will grow at about 4 to 5% over the next 1.5, 2 years as the world faces the recession. So I don't see it as any problem. good times for the economy are finally here after a brutal 2018 to 2021.
Would you agree with that point of view? Because Aditya is sounding as positive as he's always done. But Mr. Rao, with IIP growth seeing this downtrend, you spoke about several factors, inflation moderating, but still high enough for the RBI to tackle it with higher and higher interest rates. What, in your opinion, is the problem that the Indian economy has to contend with now to tackle this low investment cycle that we've been on? Do you think the opportunity for further industrial investments would come from the speed breaks brought on by COVID in the Chinese economy? Because that's one factor that you did allude to.
See, what I talked to you is the supply side problems.
Yes.
There are demand side problems as well. And at this particular moment of time, the policy makers are faced with a dilemma. On the one hand, you've got to contain the fiscal deficit, because the stimulus for the economy from the public sector side will have to come from expanding the investment spending by the government. Stimulus from the public for that has, which means, but then there is no fiscal space. Even if, for example, if you contain the fiscal deficit this year, it is 6.4% at the center, another 3.5% at the state level. It's almost 9.5% of fiscal deficit. And there is not much of a space because the household sector financial saving is much less than, is just about 10%. Now, in that situation, on the one hand, you have to contain the fiscal deficit, and on the other, you need to expand public investment expenditures. And how do you really expand public investment? Only way that you have to do is, hopefully, the buoyancy that you have seen in the tax revenue will continue. You need to really do, massive sort of initiative has to be taken to monetize your assets, including disinvestment and privatization. And then obviously you need to cut down on unnecessary expenditures on subsidies and transfers. And that is the way in which, this year capital expenditure of the center and the state taken together by the government could be somewhere close to 6% of GDP.
Yes.
Now, that has to be maintained at least, and then while containing the fiscal deficit, which basically would require, and hopefully, like in other countries where the value-added tax has been imposed, it turned out to be a money machine.
Yes.
Hopefully, with the settlement, as your technology platform settles, compliance will improve. And as you have seen for the last 7-8 months, the GST will rise. And
so you're talking about, Mr. Rao, plugging the holes when it comes to demand side pressures, as far as, the larger game plan that the government should have. And we'll see how much of that gets translated in the next budget. But Aditya, the banner headline, I'll come to you, Mr. Rao. But Aditya, the banner headline on corporate earnings has been about revival from the pandemic, and you talked about that. But this report that we're looking at, the government report, is pointing towards a lot of capacity underutilization. Are you reading reports where capacity utilization has actually stagnated? And if so, which are the sectors that seem to be the most affected? And what could be the possible reasons? Because demand, whether pent up or not, like Mr. Rao is talking about, by most accounts, it remains high. I mean, we're talking about demand not having plateaued as such. Pent-up demand might be slipping, but it hasn't really stopped growing, has it?
In my opinion, whatever I have seen, I analyze companies across spectrum. We have seen a slowdown in demand in the FMCG sector because of the fact that prices were shooting up like crazy. For example, the prices of paints are up about 30% in the last 1 year, and that is leading to a slowdown in the demand in the rural areas. That's one interesting phenomenon that we have seen across companies. However, there the capacity utilization does seem to be low. However, if you then look at the infrastructure sector, or you look at the specialty chemicals of the pharma sector, or you look at the banks, you will find that these companies are going very gung-ho. In fact, some of the specialty chemical companies are expanding their capacities over the next 2 to 3 years. So as I said, these are all the lagging effects of a slowing down economy from 2018 to 2021. And as the credit growth starts to go into the economy and we see a demand coming back slowly and steadily into the economy, you will find that corporate companies start to go on an expansion mode. As I said, pharma companies, API companies, auto companies have started to expand. India is the biggest manufacturer of autos, and companies are starting to expand here as well. So as I said, give it time, give it about 1.5 years, and you will see the economy in the pink of the health. So I'm not very worried about the economy's health. And of course, the markets continue to swing up randomly. So that's not a worry for me as such.
Fair enough. We'll have to wait and see what kind of demand pickup actually happens, whether or not it is instigated by the policies at the center, whether the states actually do much more of this investment drawing that they have been on as far as these investment summits have been happening. And perhaps there will be more. Karnataka has done it, Madhya Pradesh has done it. And yes, the center is pushing through with schemes like the PLI scheme. How much it's going to expand to other sectors, all of that is going to be in play. And whether the opportunity that is going to be found from the slowdown in China, whether we are able to capitalize on that, that remains to be seen as well. But Aditya and Mr. Rao, it's a pleasure having you with your perspective on India tonight.
Thank you.